Hi everyone, so I wanted to show you guys how to create social emotional lessons in Google Slides. A few people had asked me just to show the way of how I did this, so I wanted to show you guys here today. It's a bit of a long video, but once you do this, you don't have to do it again. So I use a general template from week to week that I send to my kids. I have like one regular version and then a modified version that I use. Basically, I create something, I save it as a background in Google Slides, and then I give them some way to submit information, do like a little task, and then submit it back to me so I know what they're doing. So here is how I would, if I was doing it again from scratch, do it. So what I want to do is just create a blank Google Slides presentation. And this is going to be our like template. So I'm just going to call it template. The first thing I always do is change the page setup. It's defaulted to widescreen, but I like standard screen on here. So do that. I delete all the boxes just because that makes things easier for me, but you can do however you want. So to start off, you just want to think about how you want your slides to look week to week. So if you saw the ones that I shared on my blog and on Instagram a little bit, I just use a basic like rectangle shape at the top, a colored box, and then the title. You don't have to do that. You could do like fun shapes, different circles, neon green, whatever you want to do. So I'm just going to color the box a different color and then add my title to it. So these are the things again that stay the same week to week, no matter what I'm sending to my kids. So the things that I have on the first slide that I always do is a check-in for my kids. You can also, if you really want to get fancy, create these in PowerPoint if you had like specific fun fonts that you wanted to use, and then import it. But I'm just, for the sake of showing you guys how to do it, just doing it on Google Slides today. So maybe this is how I want my check-in to look. And then you just want to figure out how you want your kids, if you're doing it this check-in the way, to check in and like just tell you about how they're doing. So if you saw in the one that I use, I have an emotions check-in and then a zones of regulation one. So the way I created the emotions one was I just did a basic black circle here. Let's see, I'm gonna make it transparent. And then I used some clip art when I did this that I had bought from TPT. You don't have to do that. You could use like anything. Google Drive has a nice thing to like search the web. So if really you wanted to do that, you could even just do like emoji smiley faces. So it's just like, just to show you how to do that. Put them in here. And this is just one way that you could do it. I'm just showing you guys an example today. Okay. So you could do this with emotions. Like I said, I have one that's like the colored zones. You could do it with like a 1 to 5 rating scale, whatever works for you. But I would fill this with different emotions faces. And then since I'm always going to want them to do the same thing, I'm just going to put the question, how are you feeling today? Okay. And then I also always do a box, just like a share question. This is something that I always do in my little groups. So I wanted to kind of keep that the same with my kids. So I just made a little question box here. And then similarly, so for here, I'm just going to put share. And then I'm going to leave blank where the actual share goes because that's going to change from week to week. So basically, the only thing that you want to stay the same, to keep on this template, is something that is never going to change. So that's actually all I'm going to do for my check-in slide. I'm going to do another slide. I'm just going to duplicate this one, and actually I should have done this before, but just delete some of the information so that I don't have to redo the fonts and colors. So the next thing that I usually do is like a lesson for kids. I'm just going to change this to, so again, you can do it however you want. Because my lesson varies from week to week, the only thing that I leave on the template for the slide is actually just what you see now that's called lesson. And then I always do an activity. And then what I call a checkout. And this is like the closure, the way for students to kind of show me what they learned and whatever I gave them. Okay. For the checkout, so the only thing that I have like a question usually or an activity to do. So for here, I'm actually going to put a shape as well. Oops. Okay. And then let me leave some room to type it. Okay. And so this is actually all I'm going to have in my template. Again, you can kind of design it however you want, but all you're going to have on this is what is going to change, going to never change week to week. So once you have your template, you're going to go and you need to click on each of the slides to do this, but download each of the slides as an image. I usually do PNG, but you could do either way, actually, doesn't matter. Click on this. And so you have to do this for each of these, but you don't have to do this every time you do a lesson. Okay. All right. And then we're going to X out of the template. And now we're going to make our first week's lesson. So I'm going to go again and do another blank presentation. And I'm going to call this one, usually I label them by week or date. So week 1, maybe I'm doing just like a zones review. Okay. So again, I go and just the first thing I always do is change that. And now I want to use the slides that I created, but I want to make them not editable for the kids so that they don't change and the kids can't move those pieces around. You know, I don't think you have to do it, but it makes it easier for the students to just manipulate things. So anyways, I'm going to right click and go to change background. And I'm going to pick, so my check-in is this one. And done. Okay, so now as you can see, all of the check-in slide that I created before is not editable, which is good because I don't want my kids to be able to edit it. So the kids are going to go ahead and see this, and it's going to say, how are you feeling today? So what I'm going to do is create a shape for the purposes of like making this easy for my students and their parents. I just did a red circle when I did this. So I made a red circle and I just stick it off to the side somewhere. Down here, I often add a note that says like drag the red circle to the feelings space you are feeling. Okay. And then, so for my share, now it says share here, but I need to type the individual question every week. So let's see, maybe I'm asking them, what was the best meal you ate this weekend? This is always just like a fun question that I do in school with the kids, just like a random share. So I kind of want to keep that going because that was a good way to maintain connections with my kids. So I'm going to type the question in, and then whenever I want kids to type something into the slide, I make a box that says literally type here. So I'm going to create a new text box, and I'm going to literally write in it, type your answer here. And then I also make it red so that the kids and their parents know that that's something that needs to be changed. And there we go. So this is the first slide that the kids are going to open up to. You can also include like an instruction slide. I did that at first with when I started doing this actually. So when the kids go in, they can just take this and drag it to the face and to the face they're feeling, and then type their answer in here. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm done with that first slide. So now I need my second slide. And same thing, I'm going to choose an image, and I'm going to make this one my lesson. Okay, so on here I put whatever I want my kids to be working on, and I try to do different modalities and vary this when I do this. So sometimes it might be just me like typing in, let's talk about the zones, let's learn about the zones, and then doing some pictures and things like that. Sometimes it's like a brain pop link, sometimes it's a link to another website where there's like an activity or something to do, but this is basically just teaching them, and they just have to either read it or click on it, and there's nothing that they have to manipulate. Sometimes this is one slide, sometimes it's been up to like 3 or 4 that I've done. So that's the next slide. So then, do this. I'm going to do this again, choose another image, and my next one is the activity. So I did my check-in, my lesson, and now the kids are going to do an activity to practice what they learned about the zones. So the activity, again, it varies. Sometimes they have like a drag and drop thing on here, which I'll show you how to do that. Sometimes it's a Google form that they click on the link and answer questions in there. Sometimes it's another random game online that I find. But you can kind of just figure it out however you want it. So for example, one time I did an activity that was like match the emotion to the zone. Okay. So let's say I wanted to figure this out. Let's say I want to just put a different emotion in here. Sad boy. Okay. Okay. And then I pick shape. And I'm just going to do like the zones of regulation colors. Okay. So then when the kids went in to do this, maybe I would put a little note here. Drag the picture to the correct color. Okay, so then when the kids did this, they would just have to drag each one to there. So that would be their activity to practice. So after the activity, the last thing that I do, let's see, to a new slide, is just a checkout. And this is again following the same way that I do sessions when we're physically in school. Okay, checkout. And here we have the template that we designed in the beginning. So there's always something for my kids to write in this, so that's why I left it like that. So the checkout for today, I'm going to say for them maybe, tell me about a time you were in the yellow zone. Where were you? What happened? And then again, I want them to put their response here. So I'm going to write again, write your response here. So there's no guesswork in it. And I'm going to make it red. And that's it. So this is already saved, and that's kind of it. Once I have this, so this automatically saves, right? So I do this for my first week, and then when I go and I would go to do this second week, I would take my presentation and make a copy of it right here, and then just change the relevant information that I needed to. So I will show you what it looks like for kids in a minute once they get the slide. So here's what it looks like when I'm a student and I go in and see the classwork that I have assigned to somebody. So this is back when I first did this, my week 1 of counseling. So once they click on this, they'll get taken to the Google Slides presentation that you created. And like I said, when I did this for my students the first time, since we were all getting used to Google everything, I made a direction slide for them, and I left that in for like the first 4 weeks or so. So here's their directions, so the kids would read that if they needed to, and then here is their check-in thing. So they could just drag the circle to whichever face they were feeling, and then I had here, what is one thing that you've done with family since you left school, and I typed in the beach. So, and that's it for the check-in. So for the next slide, I did a lesson. This was mindfulness here. So I had said a little bit about what is mindfulness, and then the kids, there was a link right here where they could just click on this and it would take them to the Brain Pop. And I also included our login for school. Then 2, I said to just click this link to read this article, and then I put 2. I think it's just helpful just because there's always questions about to log in, use your Google student login, or they could listen to this book, and then again they would just click on that and they could click on the link to take them to right there. So that was my lesson for the week. So then I had an activity, and I gave them 2 short activities here. So 1, practice mindful listening, and then 2, find your peaceful place. So this is one where they didn't have to do the activity right on the screen, but it gave the directions here, and then they just did it obviously wherever they were. And then finally for the week, the checkout. So I said, tell me 2 things you heard in your mindful listening activity, or tell me what your peaceful place looks like. So I might say, I heard a dog barking and my fan. That's that. And then, so when the kids are all done, it automatically saves it. And then they can go in and turn it into you. And that's it.